really. Okay, are we live on YouTube, Melda?
It's connecting right now, so it's telling me it's redirecting me to YouTube. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Um,
Technology, man.
okay, it says go to home. Give me 1 second because it's telling me it's private.
On my end, it shows that it's streaming live.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what the message I have says.
Okay. Let me just double check on another tab.
Okay, I'm going to get started, Imelda, just to make good use of everybody's time. So, we want to make
Yeah.
sure that this training is something that over the next few days leading up to the April 15th tax deadline is profitable for you. Like you're choosing to be here. You're sacrificing other time that you could be billing clients, et cetera. So we want to make sure that these numbers from this training, are increase your profit and also your job satisfaction. So to start the conversation, I want to look at a little spreadsheet. And Andrea McDonald, our special guest, our mentor here today, is so imagine as I'm talking to you right now, and as the group we're having this conversation, right? So I'm a tax professional right now. Today's April 12th. We're going into April 15th. A lot of the clients that I'm going to be helping, especially the ones that I'm kind of thinking about right now, and I might be even a little bit nervous about, are Schedule C clients, right? People that maybe weren't too excited to do their taxes, they're self-employed. We know the deal, right? So let's talk for a second about I'm gonna serve um a blank number of Schedule C clients from now until the April 15th deadline. Okay. And so let's between me and you, just so we can have these numbers. And if anybody has in the chat, you guys want to put in a number, how many Schedule C clients are you going to help from now until the deadline? So I put in just as a placeholder here 40 Schedule C clients. Do you think, Andrea, that's like reasonable? Is that way too high? Is that too low? What do you think?
For me, that's pretty high. I realize a lot of people are going to work through the weekend. So over the course of 4 days, maybe not so much, but if you don't work the weekend, that's just 2 business days. But I like the number.
Okay, so are you suggesting to not work the weekend when the deadline's on Monday?
Yes. Now, whether
Okay.
you can actually do that, I'm not even certain I'll be able to do that, but that's my pie in the sky dream.
Okay. So should I leave it at 40 or do you think I go more like 25 for the purposes of getting us started on this discussion?
I don't know. I say leave it at 40.
Okay. So let's say 40. And let's say that I am a tax pro who is maybe in that mode of kind of feeling sorry for Schedule C clients close to the deadline. We've all been there, right? Maybe sometimes we even feel sorry for ourselves, the amount of tax that we have to pay right about now if we're self-employed. So let's say I'm kind of on the mercy train, like it's not all about money, this kind of thing. What kind of price do you think I'm going to charge if I'm like not too aggressive? Maybe I'm not even as confident in my work with Schedule C clients close to the deadline. What's like a good number? I had thought of maybe 200, 250. What do you think that number looks like?
Let me clarify. Are you asking how much you charge for just the Schedule C or
I'm
for the
talking about
whole
the client
return?
overall. I'm talking
Okay.
about you have a Schedule C client in front of you. What's the fee that you're going to receive from that client? It's April 12th now, and I'm going to do the work by April 15th. I'm going to complete the tax return by April 15th, and I'm not being that aggressive on my pricing.
I mean, I hope there isn't anyone out there charging only 250 with a Schedule C, but I feel like there probably are. So that's probably a decent number to put.
On the other side of it, I'm going to be quite aggressive with my pricing. My value is there. I'm really, really confident working with Schedule C clients. And I believe that the fact that I'm coming through for these clients, Andrea, so close to the deadline has a lot of value. So I'm going to aggressively price my work out of respect for what I do and almost like even a hazard pay type of element close to the deadline here. What kind of number am I going to see average tax prep? And again, that's the all-in fee for a Schedule C client. I know it will vary wildly, but just
Yeah.
give me kind of like an average that makes sense to you.
I mean, I know what I charge, which we're not going to talk about right now, but I would want to see people in this group, this number should be a minimum of 550, but I would rather see 750.
Okay, so what if we split the difference, you guys, for sake of this conversation, and say 650. So
Love
so
that.
each Schedule C client that I'm going to handle from now until Monday, close to the deadline, average. So it doesn't have to be every client 650, right? But between all of the clients, these 40 clients we're talking about, we're charging 650. So these gray cells, as you know from our plug and play stuff that we try to give our members, indicate that it's going to auto calculate. So, depending what you do, right? So you're helping 40 clients either way. You're charging average 250 or you're charging average 650, and we can see how that impacts the earning from the next 3 days, right? Which are probably some of the most profitable days potentially that we have as professionals. I want to see for a second here, Andrea, because there's other services that Schedule C clients need if they're close to the deadline, especially if they owe unpleasant amounts of tax, right? So we're talking about tax planning, we're talking about tax problem resolution. There's some other needs, right, that we can, and even like ancillary services like insurances and different things, financial advising that some of our members do. So can you talk for a second about Schedule C clients close to the deadline? You identify they need other services. Is that an opportunity to generate more revenue? Is that something like, hey, we're just too close to the deadline, like let's not focus on that? How do you see that as part of this conversation? And everybody too, Dream Team members in the chat, let us know how you guys see that as well.
For me, April 12th is not the time to be having tax planning conversations. And
Okay.
so if it's a client who's going to need a little more hand holding, they get an extension now, and then we can revisit it when we have time to look. But let's just say that you have your act together and you actually have time to have some conversations. I mean, in my firm, I charge $900 minimum for just the S Corp analysis. That's not even a guarantee that S Corp makes sense. That's just for me to do the math. So for somebody who's not achieved aggressive pricing policies yet, I would say, you could generate maybe another $250 or $300 worth of revenue per client, just say for that S Corp discussion, because if you have Schedule C, that's a logical tax planning opportunity, and it's relatively quick to do. So on the low end, 250 or 300, on the high end, 900 or more, but we'll just say 900 because that's the price I stick on things. But again, for me, April 12th is not the time to be having those conversations. Like especially if you think you're going to get through 40 returns from now to Monday evening, you're probably not having time to have actual conversations with people. Not about planning anyway.
Yeah, and so this is a part of the spreadsheet that maybe we can't really fill out with full confidence in this short training. But I think it's something to consider, right? Because even if you don't generate this revenue right today when you're completing the tax prep, if you set it up properly, like to do that S Corp analysis. So let's say you have a Schedule C business that they're profitable, right? And so all the Dream Team members, you guys should have what we call our magic spreadsheet, where you can just plug in the numbers of the net profit on a Schedule C, and you can see if an S Corp would save the client and how much they would save them. So you should all have access to that spreadsheet where you can, even while you're doing the tax prep, you can just plug in those numbers and roughly see. So let's say that let's say we're just talking about S Corp conversions, and 5 of these 40 clients would benefit from that. What happens a lot of times if we're not being in that aggressive, really growing our business mode or growing our earning mode, is we might mention it to the client, but not follow up, not make it something that's a priority, and show the client exactly how much they're going to save, that kind of thing. So I'm going to put here, just in terms of over the next 3 days, even if you were really not trying that hard, you could probably generate $1,000 of extra consulting income, non-tax prep. And keep in mind, this doesn't have to be work that you do right now. I'm saying maybe this is more like you've seeded it, right? But it blossoms into, let's say, $1,000. But if you take, let's say there's 4 clients and you charge an average of $1,500 per client for a tax plan, that's the still same 4 clients instead of 250, 1,500. You can see potentially that this income can be quite a bit more. And this doesn't even count tax problem resolution, if you're into that kind of work or different things. So we can kind of leave this just for sake of discussion. But well, actually, Andrea, does that make sense of kind of like keeping an eye out for the other things that these clients need? Because if they're coming at the last minute, they probably have a lot of needs, right?
Yep, they probably do. And like you said, you're not necessarily going to be able to address those needs right now for tax year 23, but it could be opportunity for 2024. And so it still counts as an increase in your revenue.
Right. And so if I want to make sure when we do these different spreadsheets or trainings and stuff that this is applicable for your real life as a tax professional. Like a lot of the trainings that I go to and stuff, it's like this kind of pie in the sky things of, so this should be realistic for people. And you can plug in your own numbers, like the Dream Team members, you guys, I'll give you this spreadsheet in the notes for the meeting. And so you can run your numbers and make it very real for yourself. But if you just look at it on paper here over the next, today, tomorrow, Sunday, and Monday, 4 days basically, would you rather make $11,000 in revenue or would you rather make $32,000 in revenue?
32 for sure. And
Okay.
even if you're conservative, like if you play with these numbers, let's say, 40 from now to Monday is super aggressive. Even if we made that number 20, so even if you cut it in half or 25, which may or may not be doable even, but you can see with these numbers, you're still talking about a significant increase in revenue in a really short amount of time. So think about like, what could you do with 8,000 extra dollars? Right? You can
Yep.
do a lot. So I definitely encourage you to be looking at your pricing, especially right now for clients who wait till the last minute. Failure to plan on their part should not constitute an emergency on your part. And Uber charges surge pricing. So why aren't you considering charging surge pricing?
Yeah. And for us, and I know Andrea looks at it the same way. We want to be in the role of helping to provoke thoughts for you, but not telling you what to do. So this is for purposes of discussion. And so, again, all the Dream Team members, you guys will get this exact spreadsheet so you can plug in your own numbers and really see what this means for you. I want to transition over now to, okay, so now we have kind of visibility on financially what the next few days can look like with two different approaches, right? So for the next part of the training, Andrea, I want to look at, if I want to get over to the more of the right side of this column, I want to get over to that. I'm extremely confident in my work and I'm in its value and I'm being, fair to myself or even aggressive on my pricing. What should I do now, right now, over the next 4 days to make my numbers look more like the numbers on the right than on the left? And I did bring, for sake of discussion, do you guys see a Word document now?
No, we still see the spreadsheet.
Okay. What about now?
There she is.
Okay. So these are questions that I kind of put together based on what we have heard from members and also that I myself have had these, similar questions throughout my life. And so let's go through some of these questions and just with the idea that again, you're here today sacrificing your time to be here. And so we want to make sure that this is a profitable training for you. So let's think of these as real things that we can actually consider doing. Maybe you decide not to do all of them, but at least we have the time to think about it and discuss it together. For people that are here in the Zoom room, please feel free to also drop any notes, comments, questions in the chat, and we'll get to those as well. So pricing Schedule C is one of the most important aspects of running a profitable tax business. True, or because there's so many different things we can do, right? That you have like a million different levers we can pull. Is this one of the most important levers? And if so, why?
I don't know that I would say necessarily pricing just Schedule Cs is one of the most important aspects because it really depends on what type of client you serve. But getting your pricing right for me is definitely probably the most important part because we have overhead, we have varying size companies, we being the pros on this call. We have varying size companies, we have varying size teams, so varying overhead. But at the end of the day, pricing is your revenue. So if you get your pricing dialed in, you get your revenue right, your business is more likely to be successful than not. So I do think it's really important. And it's hard,
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah, it is. And we're gonna talk about that in a second here. So from my side, especially if you're a non-CPA preparer, the sheer number of Schedule Cs and the fact that not all Schedule C clients will seek to work with a CPA and are more than open to, whatever credentials or you do or don't have. That's one of the main things why we feel like this is a huge lever for a lot of people, because there's just so many clients that need a Schedule C taken care of, as well as I personally have never seen a Schedule C that was self-prepared ever that was done to the client's best benefit. So when you are looking at the, can clients do their own taxes using a DIY robot or their cousin Vinny, and get a similar result or a better result than a professional helping them? This is one of those areas where we still have that delta and that difference in a lot of cases. So I think those are a couple things to why we thought this was an important training for people, even given the deadline approaching. So when I was first kind of learning about the business side of the tax industry, Andrea, which I know you've been in a franchise and you know about the business side from building your own business. Um, I didn't realize that a lot of people double prices for Schedule C clients or for more challenging clients after April 1st or even after March 15th. Is that bad? Is that wrong? Or is that actually good and smart?
I mean, obviously this is going to be a subjective answer, but I think it's brilliant, right? I just think it's brilliant. Again, I go back to the surge pricing example with Uber. If you're trying to catch an Uber during a peak time, the concert just let 10,000 people out, Uber charges more, the demand is higher. Think about it that way. When you're getting really close to the deadline, you're under the gun. You have a client who took their sweet time getting the information to you. They still want to try to file by April 15th. What I said earlier, failure to plan on their part should not constitute an emergency on your part. But if you're willing to give it a go, you should be able to charge a rush fee, or I don't know that I would call it surge pricing with the client, but I would call it a rush fee or something. I don't know. I mean, I think it's brilliant. If you're going to add that extra stress on yourself, then the client should have to pony up a little bit more money, in my opinion. And again, it's all subjective. If you don't do that, that doesn't make it wrong. You're running your business how you run your business, but the whole point of this is ideas so that even if you can't implement them for this tax season, you can be thinking ahead for next tax season.
Yeah, and I wonder. So with that in mind, if I had, because I was going to say about the communication to the clients, because I think like if you say Uber surge pricing, now you're talking about this like giant corporation, that has this like business strategy out of like a Harvard Business School review case or something like that, versus like, wow, like I'm going to double my clients' prices. And this is a person that I've known for years. And this is going to be something that I'm doing wrong to them or betraying them, or this like personalized feelings, about the feelings as they get kind of expensive, at times. So should I communicate that to my clients that like ahead of time? And if I haven't done that, like let's say it's today, for example, I haven't communicated that, am I still okay to consider, making a significant jump in pricing, or would that be immoral?
I'm a big fan of being really transparent with my pricing with my clients. So I feel like if you haven't communicated to them yet that it's going to cost them more to get the return done by April 15th, then you may not be able to charge more. You may want to consider putting them on extension to buy yourself a little breathing room. But I'm a big fan of transparency. So a suggestion, if you can't implement that right now for the tax return you're doing, have written into your engagement letters for next year that if they don't get you all of their documents by March 15th, an additional fee of X amount will apply. Then it's in the engagement letter. Whether they read it or not is a whole separate discussion, but it's in your engagement letter. Your client has signed the engagement letter. You're being fully transparent, and it's fair, I think.
Okay, so but if I just decided like based on this training that like the market value is higher than what I'm charging, even if I charge less last year, I could still do it, right? I could still do it and be fair to myself, right?
You can still do it, but you should tell the client before you start working on that return. Don't
Okay,
do it and then present them with a bill that's $500 more than you charged them last year, right? Like
I like that.
as long as you communicate it to your client before you do the work, then absolutely. If you can get it this year, by all means, get it.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe that is something that it's not too late to communicate ahead of time, because that client could still have a choice. They could still file an extension and find another person if they were unhappy, or choose another option. Okay, I think that's really helpful, because I think the hurt feelings part is a big thing for a lot of us since we really do care about our clients and we don't want to get into gouging. So, speaking of gouging, or some of us don't want to get into gouging.
I think
What
these
is
next couple
gouging?
of
It's kind of
questions
like
are among my
subjective.
favorite though. Yeah.
Gouging can be subjective, you know?
It's not gouging. You mentioned like the CPA for just a really quick like mindset comment that I want to make. If you're not credentialed, like a CPA credential or an EA credential, don't let that stop you from realizing that you have a lot of value. You're spending time and energy and money learning this stuff. You're a member of Dream Team or you're a member of some other community. You're investing in your education. You're doing continuing education. Even if you don't have a requirement, you're continuing to learn and grow. You know more than your clients know. That has value. Even if you don't have an EA or a CPA after your name. And by the way, I have reviewed plenty of tax returns that were prepared by CPAs that are hot garbage. And I have made plenty of mistakes on tax returns, and I am a CPA. So don't let the lack of those little alphabet soups after your name stop you from realizing that you are valuable to the profession and to your clients. Just my 2 cents.
I like it. So I think this is possibly the key question about this overall scenario. If you plan to really apply this right now, like over the next 3, 4 days, you're like, hey, I'm going to do this. Like, you know that one Schedule C is not the same as another Schedule C, right? You have all different levels of profitability, all different levels of complexity. Some have cost of goods sold, some have done some type of bookkeeping and some have done none or done it to completely wrong, right? So you have so many different factors. And I think, what we hear from members a lot of times is I feel like sometimes I really undercharge Schedule C clients. And sometimes I feel like I am gouging and I am overcharging if my form price for Schedule C says $500 and it's somebody that's doing, DoorDash or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
So the variety of Schedule Cs is so huge that I think this is why it's really a tricky thing to price. Overall, if I was just going to take, one, two ideas away from this about how to handle that variation and price it profitably, but also still beneficial for the client, what do you think is like your big picture point of view?
I've got two main suggestions, and neither of them might work this late in the game. So these might be thoughts for heading into next season. One, I recommend reviewing the prior year return before you quote a price. So if it's a new client to you, get a copy of their prior year return, look it over, make sure you understand what's on their tax returns, understanding that things could have changed, but get an idea of what their tax return looks like before you accept them as a client and before you quote a price. And then the second thing is during that review process, the prior year review process, ask them a couple of questions. If you see a Schedule C, ask them, how are they tracking their income and expenses? That gives you some really great intel. If they're like, I use QuickBooks or I use Xero or I use Wave, you know that they've got some kind of record keeping. It still might not be very good, but they've got something. Or they'll tell you, I don't know, I have a bank account and it's all there. It'll give you a little bit of insight into how much work you're going to have to do to get that Schedule C to completion, and then you can factor that into your pricing. Again, these may not be things you can implement now, so you might just end up undercharging some and overcharging some through the end of this tax season, but heading into next year, you can start implementing, you can change up how you do your discovery process.
Yeah, so I think those are great suggestions. I think most of these things actually could be applied today. Like you could apply this with your next client.
Yep.
Definitely quoting, or I hate to say quoting, but then it's like, don't quote me on this kind of thing. Things turn out different, but estimating prices ahead of time without seeing the prior year return and asking, hey, is the situation more or less similar to this? When it comes to Schedule C last minute clients, is a potentially disastrous, way to go about things, and probably one of the single most unprofitable things you could do as a tax professional. So, okay, so for this portion of it, we coming up on 30 minutes. We want to thank everybody that's tuned in on the YouTube live stream. Thank you so much. We hope you got value from this. We're going to go ahead and go into the private members, Dream Team members discussion piece of this now. If you are interested in becoming a Dream Team member and being part of the in the room meetings that we have 3 times per week, actually, every week, one of which is led by Andrea. Please consider joining the Dream Team. We'll put the link for you guys to look at all what's included in the comments or in the description, whatever the YouTube stuff is. We'll put it on the YouTube for you. And we'll see you soon. And then Dream Team members, just hang out, and we're going to go into the Q&A and further discussion piece of this. Imelda, can you just also confirm with me when we're